Okay, I think we'll jump in here and get started, and then John can find his way in, I'm sure, and just get with the program when he arrives. Um, so, how many of you watched the Super Bowl?
Oh, it's awesome. Well, actually, the commercials were awesome. The game itself wasn't awesome, but that's okay.
Oh, spoken, I'm afraid, like a Kansas City fan.
Oh no, I actually really felt for them because I felt like it was watching the Browns. To be honest, I felt bad. Really, I felt bad for them, but it just wasn't entertaining enough for me.
Well, and I have to admit that though I'm supposed to be an ambassador for empathy, I didn't feel a bit bad for them. I,
Yeah, no, I get it.
yeah, well, welcome back, everybody. Having read your exit tickets from the previous session, it was clear that folks were having a good experience, and we were feeling good about being back in touch as well. So we will keep carrying forward and create some additional traction and progress each time, and look forward to seeing some great ideas come out from everyone and from the group collectively. Everything that we do today is trying to reinforce the parts of the planning model to make sure everybody's 100% comfortable in going forward with their own plans and using the template. And you will notice that there are a few interlopers that are making their way on screen. Jeff Elliott and Gina Salvatore are part of the group that we worked with last summer that developed so many of those excellent sample plans. And at a point a little bit later on, we're going to involve them in the discussion with you, and we look forward to doing that. The first thing that we want to do, speaking of the plans from last summer, we worked so hard with that group to identify entry events for their projects that they were going to be excited about. And everybody had many, many suggestions and lots of things to choose from. But one of the suggested entry events for a project called Dog Day Afternoon, which is about proper care of pets, and also a partnership with a local shelter. One of the entry events that the teacher decided on is the video that we're going to share with you in a moment. So I think this will sort of bring across the idea that an entry event is meant to really reinforce emotional engagement on the part of the students. And the teacher involved felt that this was a great way to get folks on board about dogs in particular. So uh, we'll get to it and run that and talk about it in just a minute.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen now? So this will be in session 2 in case you want to take a look at it later.
If you don't need Kleenex, I don't love you anymore.
I was just gonna say you didn't tell us to have Kleenex nearby. Jeez.
I cheated. I watched it over the weekend and I was like crying watching it. I was like,
Um, so, certainly what a wonderful thing to show to a group of kids and then launch into ways to help the local agencies that are reaching out to make sure animals have homes and to do a number of other things related to animal care. But one of the reasons that we wanted you to see it is that took 1 minute. 1 minute and see where you are with a group of kids in a totally different place in the space of a moment or 2 minutes or 5 minutes by the careful selection of entry events that help to make the topic really compelling and important. Okay.
And the goal of an entry event really is, what's the issue? And I want to do something about it. Now, don't you all want to go out and get a dog? I mean, that's it's and as Ellen said, it takes so little time to get that emotional attachment to something.
And I don't really want a dog. I just want to watch the video again and again and again. All right. Okay. I hope everybody had a chance to select at least one of the samples from last summer to take a look at how the teacher worked through the template and took the project from the point of the idea to the point of a finished plan.
Can I just say one thing, because I want to make sure that we get this straightened out. Matt, was it you that you were having trouble getting into those?
I didn't really have any problem. I was just I think I was swapping between a Chromebook that I had in my personal account, and then I was working at school with my computer, and I was trying to print something off, but I couldn't do it from my personal Chromebook, so I just clicked on it, and I guess it sent you that I was trying to access it. I didn't send it; it just did it automatically. But I just made a copy of it and shared it with my school drive. But yeah, I got it all figured out.
So has everybody been able to get into the Google Classroom okay?
Okay. Okay. And did you have a chance to look at least one sample? Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to place you in breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. And the idea is not for you to talk about the project itself. You don't need to indicate what it was that the teacher and the kids were attempting to accomplish. That the topic of your discussion is what are the characteristics or the elements that made that project a good project, in your opinion? So we are looking to identify characteristics of effective projects. That's what your discussion is about. Gina, you want to join a group?
Sure.
Okay. Jeff, are you there? He's not in yet, quite yet. He'll join us when it's time for you guys to be actually the featured part of the program. But we'll go ahead and put Gina in a group. When you get to your breakout, decide on one person who's going to jot down the main ideas that come out of your group, the characteristics, so that when we come back in a large group, whoever was recording can identify the things that you all named. Okay. So characteristics of effective projects based on the things that you read. All right, we are going to let you go.
Can you put Sarah and I in the same group, because we are in the same suite just across the desk from each other?
Oh,
okay.
Okay, let me try to do that. So Sarah and Debbie.
Mhm.
Okay. And so you'll get a warning with about a minute to go that the rooms will close.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So the first question is for the people who are with Gina. Did she behave okay?
Yeah.
All right, good.
We liked her, so
All right, good. So from one of the groups, I don't care which one goes first, but if you were a recorder, raise your hand. Hey, that looks good. There were 3 groups and there are 3 recorders. This is looking so promising. All right, Matt, get us started. What were some of the things that your group picked out?
All right. One of the things we started off saying was how it's kind of how you teach. It's not supposed to be above and beyond. It's the organic stuff itself.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, we brought up the tiny house example that was given. And it involved letter writing and information and reading and perimeter and area. And there were just tons of things by doing this project that needed to be taught and were taught within that project. I guess there's, I mean, without slinging muddy stuff, but there's a push, I guess, to have us have curriculum maps be in a certain order. And I guess that seems to be counter helpful to doing it that way. So that was some of it. And our elementary, I guess, is more center based. So there's like math or literacy, and I'd let them pick up from there because it was more their thinking on that.
Okay,
So-
now, when you all were talking about the tiny house project, and let me pause 1 second and mention on your screen somewhere there's a gentleman named Jeff Elliott, and he's one of our guests for today, but he doesn't realize, Jeff, what they were talking about. They had all read at least one of the sample templates that were done by your summer group. They self-selected what they wanted to look at, and they were putting together some thoughts about what elements or characteristics made those appear to be successful or promising projects. So that's what we're identifying. When you're talking about the tiny house project, you're talking about somebody had read the written plan, the tiny house project. Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. And one thing that I wanted to, they haven't seen the video yet. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
One of the points that we should take up further, not today, but your point about curriculum mapping and that needing to somehow find a comfortable marriage with detail and service learning, that's a discussion that we ought to have with Shelley sometime. So that is a perfectly legitimate question and a really important
And
one.
we're from out of town, so we're
Yeah.
perfectly comfortable.
But we will pass along that came up in class, and we'll make sure that doesn't get dropped.
And before we move away from that subject, you know, we talked both about individual teacher practice in your classroom and what you're doing. But then on top of that, with your visioning work that you've done, portrait of graduate and the directional system, now you've got some things to kind of test every administrative decision that's made. Theoretically, you have this rubric now to test that. So in years past, curriculum mapping could come and go, you know, and so now we're going to do curriculum mapping. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. And so if curriculum mapping helps you implement your directional system and get that kid that you want, then great. Or how do we adjust it so it does? But at least you kind of got that rubric now to have that discussion. Now I know that's theoretical, but those are some of the conversations I think that can happen now that you've done all that work at, you know, beforehand, and help administrators think about, so when we make this decision, is this helping it or is it impeding it? And sometimes you have to make a decision that, you know, for whatever reason, but at least you're making decisions with some knowns.
Okay, let's stay with the characteristics for a few minutes. So when you were talking about the tiny house project, one of the things that you mentioned was everything was purposeful and connected to the curriculum. And what other characteristics came up in your group, just sort of listing them?
Go ahead, Sarah.
So I'll speak to that. Yeah. So we were talking about within that project, they had centers. Many of us in elementary use the center model, whether it's the daily 5 or the guided math or whatever. And within those centers, they were focused on that project. So for math for example, they were focusing on area and perimeter, and the centers surrounded, like, okay, how are we going to use what we learned when you were working with the teacher, math with the teacher, to now put it towards your specific group's project. So I thought that was really interesting and a good way to address the things that we already do, and then use the structure we already have within this like umbrella project. I'm talking, but it shows up that Debbie's talking, just so you guys know. It's Sarah, not Debbie. I just realized that if you have, okay.
Okay.
I'm really good at throwing my voice.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Okay.
All right. In the other two groups, what were some of the characteristics that you picked up that made the projects effective?
One of the things we talked about in our group was finding an entry point. Gina was sort of talking to us about, since she has experience with that. And when you're finding the entry point, of course, getting some empathy there, definitely getting them to buy into it. So we thought that was pretty important. Trying to remember Gina talked about this one too, which we thought was pretty cool. Finding experts, so that it's not just us and videos, but if you can actually get somebody there. I was thinking during this day and age, some guest speakers on Zoom or whatever.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Okay. Irene, what about in your group?
Yeah, empathy was a big one. And then we talked about how, if they buy into it and then they kind of take on that responsibility, whether it's they're presenting something out to the community or to other kids like in their district or something, and that it's authentic. And then one thing Julie had mentioned, and I'm pretty much just saying everything Julie said in this one in case anybody's wondering. But
Julie was asked the last time, so she deserves a lot of visibility this time.
But no, she said that she felt like that was a running theme in a few of them. But reflection was a big one. What did the kids reflect on what they learned, what was easy, what was hard for them, and what they would do next time. And I think not everything was as big, on all of these things as the few that she read were. But honestly, like, I feel like that comes up a lot with these projects. Just, you're talking about getting kids to buy into something, just getting them to feel like that 1 minute dog video, getting them to feel something. And now they want to do something about it. So now let's give them something to do. So, they feel like they're fine. They're okay doing the work because they want to.
Good, good. Was it helpful to you all to actually read a couple of completed templates so that you got the feel for how you might yourself work through the document eventually with your own idea? Okay.
And you'll notice too on the template that you have to complete, it's a little different from the summer one, the beginning piece. I know one or more of you have asked about this. The kind of overview is shorter because after we read like 40 of these, we realized that there was some repeating things that you get all the curriculum, throughout the different elements. And so that beginning piece really is just kind of the big picture overview now. So yours is a little different, but it's just that beginning.
This is a good point for us to ask Gina and Jeff to share some thoughts with us for a little while. And we really could have picked so many of the educators that authored these excellent projects last summer, but we had some specific reasons for involving Jeff and Gina. Jeff's project was called We Are UA, meaning We Are Upper Arlington. And it was a way of involving the kids in local history and serving the community in some really unusual ways using local history. And we thought you would be inspired by that one because you all in Tallmadge have so much civic pride and such a sense of community that hearing Jeff a little bit and then having an opportunity when you can, if you're interested, to read the plan that he developed, I will be surprised if somebody in Tallmadge doesn't want to pick up and run with a really similar concept. It would be a great fit up there. And then Gina has primary kids, and we're so often asked, well, gosh, what are primary kids capable of? And we are also finding that teachers are just about universally interested right now in mental health and wellness of their kids. And that is something that was the focus of Gina's project with her primary kids. So I'm going to ask each of them to comment for about a minute or two about the gist of their project and how they engaged the kids' interest up front, how they did entry events and got them emotionally engaged. And then we'll open it to your questions to them for a few minutes as well. Jeff, you want to start?
Sure. So the title "We Are UA" comes from the chant that the kids have at their football games, and so every kid in Upper Arlington is familiar with the phrase "We Are UA." And so what we wanted to do was have this unit front loaded at the beginning of the year, because while it doesn't hit any historical content standards in the sense of the War of 1812 or George Washington, it does hit like social studies thinking skills. And in my class, we do a lot of, I guess they're called academic or soft skills, but I teach them as part of my curriculum. So they're standards that are just as important as the historical standards as well. So what we did was we used this unit to introduce students to 8th grade American history in a variety of ways. And our entry event was actually getting them to uncover some interesting things about their town in sort of like a hands-on exploratory way. Because I really believe that, what a lot of adolescents are interested in are themselves, and they're exploring issues of identity and who am I and what's my relationship to my family and my community. So I exploited that, and we used things from like looking at an old map of 1880 and then comparing it to the street names of today. And we also, to be perfectly honest with you, Upper Arlington has had a pretty long history of racism. We are a wealthy, mostly white community, and we were a sundown town, if you're familiar with that term. Also, the town's associated with redlining and restrictive covenants that kept Jews and Blacks out of our town. And so we still wrestle with that legacy. So I used some of those things to pique kids' interest. So that was our emotional entry hook. I apologize that I don't think my written plan was very good. But if anyone wants access to my unit plans, I've got Google Drive folders. You can see everything. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like so the project then was to create things to give back to the community, and I've had different iterations of this. We created maps, like walking tour maps. We created trifolds for the library one year. We created, online Google Maps one year. We've just done a lot of things that like we give to the local libraries and local schools. And we have partnerships with some of the elementary schools, and we have our kids teach their kids like what's important to know about Upper Arlington history. So yeah, if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them. I'm sorry that was a bit long-winded. I apologize.
You're quite all right.
It's not, and I want to disagree with you that your plan was great. And it was like an entry event to me because I wanted to dig deeper into. But one of the things I just want to point out, and then you can ask any questions you want, is that what Jeff is engaging them in is the process skills. What's the hidden history? What's the history you haven't heard about, and what could be more timely right now for what kids are seeing in the news and hearing about, to begin to understand that the history books are just what they chose to write down. And so being an active consumer and explorer of your history might be the most important thing you could teach kids. So it's pretty cool.
Let me hold the questions till we give Gina a chance, and then you all might have questions that they'd both like to answer. So Gina, give us a synopsis of what your kids are up to.
So my whole focus was mental health, mainly for children. I teach first grade, and I personally just struggled with this whole idea, starting, of course, way back in March, and having almost a whole year with kids and then not having them physically right with me. And I had some sessions last year where I would have office hours and kids would come just to see me because they just wanted that contact. And so I knew starting the year off this way would be hard on everybody. And my kids definitely had a tough time. So I was super glad to have this class over the summer to kind of keep my focus and get kind of a plan rolling. So as you know, things get crazy at the beginning of the year, especially with primary. So it took kind of a long time to develop, and this project is kind of still going. But my entry point basically was just doing calm and I don't want to say relaxing, but mentally clearing activities in class. So we've done a lot of yoga. We've done a lot of like classical music and coloring, and just very relaxed and calm things, because the day in and of itself is a lot to handle. And then knowing that you are gone 5 days is even harder. So we have just tried to keep this going, but that's really been my entry point. And then we started talking about how we feel and how these feelings, one, you're 5, 6, and 7, but you need to say them. You need to tell people how you feel, whether it's me, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, it doesn't matter. You need to tell somebody how you feel, because if you're struggling, other people are probably struggling too, and you can get help and you can help others. So, sorry, again, Jeff, just like I'm long-winded. I feel like I could talk forever.
Go to the action part, what your kids are actually doing to address the issue for other kids.
So we, again, had talked a lot about our feelings, and my kids were just constantly telling me how they hate being on Zoom. They hate, like, their eyes hurt after a while and everything. And so one of our favorite things to do is go noodle. If you've ever done it, it's just kind of an energizer break for them. And one of our favorites was Popsico. And we revamped Popsico and wrote our own lyrics. And my kids shared, within the lyrics, my kids share how they change from being upset, sad, or whatever to feeling better about whatever it is. So we put it in video, and it was shared on our morning announcements. So we have daily morning announcements, and then we challenged the rest of the school to kind of share how they feel or what they do when they feel upset, sad, whatever. And so it's been kind of a fun talking point, and even in the hallway, kids are stopping me and talking about it. So it's opening a door.
Yeah, and they are generating more than one of those for the school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you've got then is first graders who were feeling stressed and lonely and isolated. identifying what that's like for them, and then translating that feeling of powerlessness into meaningful action where they're in a leadership position now. And we'll send you a link with a sample video of her kids, because it's really adorable and impressive. And then similarly in Jeff's project, you have kids owning their own community history, and becoming leaders by helping other people discover things that are less known and sometimes less worthy, but important to acknowledge. So different age groups, really different topics, but a common outcome of some empowerment and some ownership and doing something significant, right?
And when you look at the projects and you look at what are the common characteristics that really make a difference, these are just tweaks to what they normally would have done. When you go from the kids taking in that history, I mean, Jeff could have stopped at the kids learning about the history and taking a test or turning something into him. But he's always created products that the kids' knowledge is used for the benefit of others. And so Gina's is the same way. I mean, my granddaughter's in first grade in Austin, and every morning on Zoom, they have mindful minutes. And God bless them that they care about the kids being calm. But by this point in the year, even my 7-year-old is cynical about mindful minutes. And I thought with just that tweak, where what they were learning could be used with somebody else, would make all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can, as you're developing your plans, just think about that little tweak. And the other thing I want to point out, and I praise Jeff for his plan, one of the things I want to praise Gina about is that between the summer and now, every time we see her, she's more excited about this project than she was in the beginning. And, you know, certainly we love what happens with kids, but if we can keep teachers energized and feeling good about what they do, it's been noticeable, Gina.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you all have questions for Jeff and or Gina, or comments?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering, are you guys remote this whole year? Have you been remote?
No,
Oh, okay.
we've been back and forth. And I think that's part of what's also stressful for my kids too. We started distance, went to hybrid, where kids were going 3 days, then 2 days, and vice versa the following week. And then we went back to distance. Now we're back in hybrid, possibly going to 5-day. So it's just all over.
Well, don't worry about 5-day. K5, we've been all day since August. So, and I love it. Thank God.
Well, and then Jeff only sees, you see each group of kids, what'd you say, 1 day a week?
Yeah, once a week. Yeah.
And then, and then if they have a snow day, and it happens to be
yeah, we've had a snow day 2 Tuesdays in a row. And so I haven't seen this group of kids in, it's going to be 3 weeks now.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's really.
But we think we're pretty sure that in Upper Arlington, right around spring break, all of our teachers in Central Ohio will have had their full vaccinations, and so we are being pushed by our community pretty hard to go all in 5 days a week with all of our kids. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tallmadge did some really unique moving around with. They moved the 5th graders to the middle school and the 8th graders to the high school, and got lots of options for the seniors to do things out in the community. And so they were able to reduce their numbers some. But as you said, the elementary has been 5 in school full-time. Middle school is what, hybrid?
Yeah.
High school.
Every other day they go. So half
and
the class.
I'm
goes.
back up to 23 kids now, so we're at full class sizes again.
Well, I know everybody's ready for it, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I put a note in the chat about his project. I love that it was tying in with third grade because that's what I teach. So have your students created something to present to the third graders?
Yeah, they did. So their job was each to, so this year with us, starting off the year remote, I had to choose something that students could reasonably be expected to do on their own with few resources. And so this year I just said, I'm not going to worry so much about it. So I don't know if you looked at the plan, but it was to make Upper Arlington better in some way. You've got to document it. You got to talk about, you got to answer certain questions and do your reflecting. It was all part of the process. And so a number of students chose the option to create packaged lessons and then deliver it to our elementary school teachers. And, despite the fact that this is a fairly, white dominant community, before the establishment of the community, there used to be a community here right underneath where the high school currently stands of a free, prosperous Black community. It's an amazing story. It's like really, really cool. And, anyway, it gets me like all revved up and excited, but anyway, it'd been forgotten about. And so like one of the projects that was created that I remember quite clearly is one of the girls was really excited about this gentleman, Pleasant Litchford, and the community that he built with his own hands. And she created a standalone lesson with audio clips and a slide presentation and readings for the kids and visuals, and sent it over to one of the elementary schools for those grades. So it was really successful. The teachers were very grateful, and she felt like she was giving back to her community.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I'm sure that you can tell from just a brief interaction with these two folks that Mr. Elliott does not lack for enthusiasm. Mrs. Salvatore does not lack for genuine warmth and wonderful way with the little ones. We're grateful to the two of you for spending some time today. Y'all have any other parting questions before I give them permission to sign out?
And one of our goals, long-term goals, is to have more opportunities for teachers in Upper Arlington to get together with teachers from Tallmadge, because when you see Arlington has been in the process of building some new schools, and Tallmadge is about a year or two ahead of you with schools that were designed to support service learning and project-based learning, and have done, all the elementary and middle school teachers have gone through training. And we're working on the high school slowly, but and so there's a lot of common, I think, interests and expertise that you guys would enjoy the experience. So
absolutely.
I do have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, no. I was going to say, just please.
I love all of this. I love the ideas, and I'll still struggle with this until I figure out a way around it. But something that a few of us have talked about, the concept of the time that it takes for these in comparison to what you're able to cover with them. And I do 100% support what the kids get out of it. I'm of the mindset that, we have a lot more to teach them than just our curriculum. And sometimes that's more important. And I'm 100% on board with that. But at the same time, I am expected to teach certain concepts and standards. And I feel very rushed to get through them, especially right now with hybrid. I mean, it's like those kids leave my classroom and it's like they've never heard of homework in their entire lives. So when they come back 2 days later is like the next time they actually look at their stuff. And I know part of that is because I'm not making it something they want to do right now. I get that, but where do you find the time to get through everything else that you want to teach them and do these types of projects?
I think, you raise a question that we have in every group, and especially because you're high school math, it's especially challenging to take a look at your curriculum and create some things that will bring that to life and make you feel good about fulfilling the curriculum, but also establishing some outside connections in the community.
Jeff or Gina, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
I struggled with the same thing when I first started. And I will say, I kind of did a toe dip with a project that we already had going. And I used the template to build it. And it was the most worthwhile thing. And it wasn't necessarily extra. We were still doing everything we needed to do. We just incorporated everything into the project. So it had math, it had language arts, it had reading and a ton of writing. And we even had artwork and music in with it as well. So this was not the current project that I'm in, but the project that I had done before that really kind of sparked this for me. And granted, I'm elementary, so I have to teach all of those different things. So I see your point being just like kind of in high school or in math. But I would also say if you find a passion with your kids or with yourself and you really want to share that with them or have them share it with others, you certainly don't have to work alone. And you can team up with language arts teachers, history teachers, whatever, to help get kind of a project that you want to do going.
Yeah, and we're happy to spend time with you out even beyond the time that we're in class together, to really think through with your curriculum what might be a good way for you to start small and feel really good about the outcome. So don't get stuck or overwhelmed by that thought. Let us help you, and we'll get with you at a convenient time. Jeff?
I'll say two things, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. I think that Gina hit it on the head. Sometimes it takes some massaging. Like I would definitely not try to force it, because if you force something and you're not really sure about it, the kids will I think pick up on that. So it needs to be something that you are passionate about. But I would say thinking about what your kids need. Like right now, Gina's kids really needed ways to relieve stress in this very stressful time, and thinking about what the community needs, that might help lead you to something that is really organic for you in your class, like where you are teaching the math concepts. The other thing that I saw really successful was at my school, one of the grade bands, tackled the Google Science Fair. Okay. And all the teachers got in there somehow. The math teacher, wasn't teaching math concepts specifically for the kids to put into their Google Science Fair projects. But the math teacher and the language arts teacher and the science teacher, they were offering like time and advice and counsel, and they found ways that they could support these kids' projects, even if it didn't exactly match up 100% with the standards that they were teaching. So I don't know if that helps you. Maybe you get together with a group of other teachers and do some sort of interdisciplinary work. I think it's valuable.
It does help for sure. I mean, I was spending some time reading through that list, that we were supposed to contribute to, and I'm reading through all these ideas and things that I get overwhelmed, and I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea where to start.
Well, and that's what we're here for. But I do think, and this is maybe a leap of faith when I'm going to say this, is that when we look at our instructional practice, and for 100 years, have been the provider of content. And if I don't go over these standards step by step by step with kids, will they understand it? And yet we see kids teach themselves to do things that are almost unbelievable. And so I think it's sort of, you know, we've got one foot in, I'm a teacher, you know, I was gonna, when I was teaching, I probably spoon fed my kids everything. And then another foot where we become the facilitator. And it's almost, when you think about those centers that you set up, kids are sometimes self-directed because of how you've set that up. And so I don't know if this makes sense, but we spend so much time in education. If kids are not emotionally engaged, if they're not actively processing what it is, the content, then we spend time going over it and over it and over it. And then they forget it 2 days after the test. And so somehow there has to be that, you know, how can we make sure that kids are actively engaged so that when they learn it, and that they can take this and apply it to a new situation, which doesn't help you this moment. But I think it's, you know, something that we'll just keep trying to, you know, I think you're teaching statistics this year, right? Okay, so
There's a ton I can do with that. I know my struggle is, and I mean, it's probably, and I'm sorry, I'm keep talking, you guys, but I'm so set, and I'm not like, oh, I'm so set in my ways, I don't want to change, but it is so hard to change my approach. It is so hard. And there's a lot of projects I can do with statistics. But what's going to be the most meaningful? What can I do the most with? What, you know, and I've only taught statistics. This is only my, you know, 3rd semester in. So it's not like I've done this forever. So I'm still trying to figure out where the important aspects of the curriculum are, what I need to, you know, hit on more. I can't even predict where they're going to struggle yet because I haven't done it enough, you know? So.
Well, statistics is a great place to start among the courses that you're responsible for. And we just want you to start one place. Don't start everywhere when you have all these many preps. But I think there is a real rich place to find ground for projects using those statistics skills. So let us brainstorm with you, you know, let us know some times that work for you, and we'll take that a step further, and I promise we won't let you get lost in the woods. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 things. I want to give kudos to Jeff and Gina, because you make it sound so damn easy, and you know it's not. So, but we do that, and here, this goes for you, Irene. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Just, even if I'm thinking like, okay, statistics. Ooh, maybe you can contact someone from the Arrows or Rubber Ducks who deals with statistics, the manager, bring them on out and have them solve things, or a bank. But keep it small, because otherwise you're going to shoot yourself in the head and just go crazy. But, you know, referring back to that small house activity, you know, a lot of people think service-based is like, oh, just go with the feelings of the kids and love the kids. No, this stuff is organized and planned so that you know what outcomes. But the key is baby steps. Pick one thing, pick a banker to maybe Skype with you guys and say, I've got some real problems I want you to solve for me. Or just little things like that, you know. But for Jeff and Gina, you know, you make it sound so easy, and you've had those little easier things along the way to get you to this expertise. But that's kudos to being an expert in doing quality projects. So
well, and they were really our most difficult students. So if they can succeed, I have faith that it's just going to be a piece of cake for the rest of you. Because I mean, when we found them, oh my God, what a mess! But
you don't have to like change the world too. Like that's where I'm at. as Gina was talking, I was like, oh, I think I did a service learning project last spring and I didn't know it. Like, and so I'm thinking of things that I have done and I'm like, oh, I guess that falls in that category. And we didn't change the world, but we made ourselves feel better. And we, you know, you don't have to solve world hunger and you don't have to do those things. I think that like John and I do this. I know you do. I'm like, oh, all these ideas. I can help. I can save people. I can save the animals. I can, you know, and we got to rein ourselves in a lot. But it's all of that, like just itty bitty baby steps. And it doesn't have to be a project that is a year long. It can be something that is small and tiny. And so it's reading other people's ideas. We work in a profession where it's just a ton of creative minds, and so we always are comparing ourselves to other people's ideas, and it's not always that. Sometimes it's just like what's good for your students, what's good for you, and what works in your classroom. So.
I know I fall into that a lot, where I look at some of these projects and then think of my own ideas and think, oh, mine's not good enough. Mine doesn't meet up with somebody else's. And I've had, since meeting you guys and really getting into a lot of your courses with you and working on things and talking to my colleagues within Tallmadge, it's like, okay, no, my ideas are good. I got some good ideas. So and like Sarah said, they don't have to be huge. And, you know, I think that's where sometimes we get caught.
If you don't take anything else away from especially today, is that, as John said, we're intentional. There are certain things that are common among all good projects. And one good project can, impact homelessness and poverty. But the project here that the high school special ed kids worked with first graders on the Iditarod. It was the Iditarod. I mean, I didn't even know I cared about the Iditarod until I talked to Kim. And the difference it made in those high school kids' lives and the first graders' lives while still learning their content, it had the same qualities of a great project on homelessness or poverty. And so I agree. It can be something small. You might think, oh, this isn't, as big as it should be. But if it has those, kids are emotionally engaged. They're learning the content they need to take action. They take action for somebody else that matters. And then they talk about what it meant to themselves, what it meant to others. They reflect on their learning. It will be great.
Let's take the emphasis for just a second off of projects. And let's just say, if you think of teaching on a spectrum from here to here, and over here is 100% traditional instruction, and over here you're thinking about 100% emotionally engaging instruction, okay? All we really want you to deeply reflect about is, how are you going to take your own instruction from wherever you are now on that spectrum and keep moving toward as engaging and authentic as possible on a daily basis? Even if it doesn't take the form of projects, how can you ensure that when kids are in your classroom, learning feels more important and exciting and meaningful to them that day than it might have if you'd gone 100% what you're used to, And so, yes, indeed, when you can formulate projects so that kids feel a sense of accomplishment about some particular outcome, that's great. But in the meantime, what if the unit that you're teaching, which isn't a project at all, begins with a different kind of entry event than you would have previously considered? And the kids are hooked on that topic more than you might have thought. That's progress. What if you reflect on a particular activity when you hadn't planned on doing any reflection, but it tells you what meaning the kids are taking away from that day. You've moved on that spectrum. So, baby steps are fine. Daily changes, absolutely great.
It's interesting because even though I teach first grade, conversation is key. And one year we do a whole water project usually every year. We've kind of moved away from it, which is horribly sad for me. But it was the year of all of those hurricanes, Maria and everything, and Puerto Rico was devastated. And it was conversation in my classroom with these little ones. And it sparked an interest, and it just happened to fit with what we were doing, but we built upon that, and they were so into it. And I will say, although these little kids raised money and it was, a cool thing to do, I feel like their biggest feat was standing out in front of our public library, talking to strangers about what they learned, how they're helping, and what others can do to help. And so I just think, it doesn't have to be super grand. Them just standing out there telling others what they know is huge.
And again, just that little tweak. I know we need to move on, but you say stuff and then it gets me excited. So when you think about what Gina taught her kids in first grade about communication, being able to talk in front of people, being prepared to talk in front of people, to be able to organize how to talk to people. My son in high school took speech in 9th grade and got an A because he taught him how to make a 3-minute egg. So what? That was how we judged. That's how we assessed it. Couldn't he have said something that mattered? He can make a 3-minute egg, great. But in first grade, if every teacher did that, you wouldn't even need speech class in high school. And so those are some of the ways we can save some time too on how we get all the content in.
John, you had your hand up there.
Yes. And one more thing, Irene, listen to me giving you all advice and everything. The key, hopefully you can find a buddy who also teaches high school math that you can, be brave and let your hair down. And if not, then you come back to this group, because me and Sarah will give you thousands of ideas. We guarantee you that. But it's always helpful to have someone bounce ideas off, because it's hard to do it on your own. So if you could find a friend that you can bounce ideas off, that's a savior.
I will, that is a great idea, and I will try that, but I am the least cynical math teacher there is when it comes to this stuff. As far as I know.
Social studies teacher or a science teacher, people don't just do math in the real world. Very few people do it in isolation. They're doing it with other collaborators.
Yeah.
Help tell them. And so talk Shelley into giving you a block, 2-period block with twice the students and teach class together.
That's a fantastic idea. Honestly, we could do social studies and statistics together. It'd be a really good course.
Oh my God.
Ooh, there you go.
And right there, even short of doing a course, you've probably just hit upon something that will lead you to a legitimate project idea.
Do a course.
I'm really conscious that Gina and Jeff have stayed a lot longer than I originally hooked them into. So if you all want to depart having been praised and thanked a lot, it's okay. And if you want to stay, that's fine too. It's up to you all.
Well, thanks everybody. I got to pick up groceries from Kroger's here in a few minutes. So I got to skedaddle, but it was great to see everybody. And I really wish everyone the very best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
So Ellen and Kathy, feel free to give out, our contact information, Gina too, and we'll help however you need.
I know about you.
She knows where to find me. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Gina.
Thanks, everybody.
Woo.
All right. So, give us some feedback about the last half hour, starting with when you were thinking about the projects you read about, and then you interacted with our two guests. If you had to identify what you're taking away from that discussion, what would you say? What did that do for you, both intellectually and emotionally? We need to know where you are.
I felt like it made me think, I don't, like, and Sarah said it, John said it, I don't have to make it such a big deal. I keep trying to make it too good in small steps. I know you guys have said it, everybody said it, but my brain doesn't want to think it. So I think that hearing them too helped.
Good.
Oh, and what Sarah said, I think at the last session, that it really needs to be organic. You get your entry in there, and then it will begin to build with the students' help. And then that's when you tie in the standards and that. But I always keep it small, and if you have good people to bounce ideas around, that makes it so much easier. But, you know, we will bounce ideas with you. We got your back if you, because it is fun. It's fun, it's scary.
Well, and our hope is that when you are working with the planning template, take this as a way to practice with an idea that you think has some promise. You are not married to carrying it out. And it's not the type of document that you should try to work through with perfection, step by step in the order. It's the kind of document where you should use that as a place to jot down ideas as they occur to you for different parts of the project, and where you're identifying a lot of different possibilities. You can refine it later and weave it into a polished plan. But for now, consider it a collection point for brainstorming, you know, and play with an idea or play with two ideas and see what feels like it might resonate for you and your students. But what we want you to get out of the course is a complete sense of comfort with the parts of the model and the planning process that you can then apply down the road. The template asks you all the right questions. If you can answer those questions about an idea, then you're likely to succeed. And we're interested in your success, not your perfection.
That's so nice.
You're unmuted, by the way.
What was that? I'm muted. Well, and then I'm thinking too, Irene, too, you can only choose to do this service, but just maybe with one of your groups, you know, with 12 kids or 13, however, I don't know what your numbers are, but, you know, again, and then if it goes well, you can compare that to how you're teaching traditionally with the others.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you. I like that.
I think that's a statistical problem right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like it runs the numbers.
What else is on your minds?
I had an idea rolling around before this session started, and talking with Gina, it's a similar idea, but I was just like, I'm ready to go for it.
Good.
So, and it helped me kind of hone in on what my goal actually was, and which is what her goal was, the social emotional piece. So, yeah.
Good. Now, we have certainly, as this session has unfolded, we have abandoned things that were on the original agenda with your assistance with that derailment.
Which is no problem for me.
No, not with me either. But one of the things that we were going to do was to actually show the video of the tiny house project. Now, different from the write-up that you read, although the person that submitted that over the summer really based her plans upon having seen the video as a part of the course. Some of you may have seen that with us a number of years ago, and others not. and we have a couple of choices here, time-wise. We can still show it if you like, while we're all together, and make that the last thing that we do. Or we can put it in it's in the Google Classroom so that you can play it at your convenience. So how many of you would prefer that we show it now while we're together?
As opposed to what else?
As opposed to it's in the Google Classroom and you can play it at your convenience.
Is it the one that we watched last year in a meeting with you at the high school? Okay, yeah, I've seen that one. I'd rather do it on our own.
Not to show it during class, since some of you have seen it.
Yes, we can absolutely do that. Okay, and then let's just talk about the assignments for the next time, and also what you all think you need the most help with, because I think your group is different from some of the others that we've been working with through this process, because you have more previous experience. And so we'll probably do the next time a quick refresher on multiple intelligences by way of encouraging you to incorporate that as a part of your plan when you fill out your template. But it won't take as much time as it does with some groups, because you've had prior experience with that in our presence. So there is the flower activity for you to pay attention to, and do it before you come so that we can then discuss it based on your results. And in your materials also, there are some guidelines for entry events and for driving questions. And we would like for you to be as intentional as possible in looking at those two topics, the sample entry events and the sample driving questions, so that we can do some work together to make sure everybody is up to speed on those items. We feel like if we spend time with you on multiple intelligences and reflection and driving questions and entry events, and you feel well prepared on those things, then it will be easy for you to complete the template when you're ready. So those are the things that where we want to fill in some blanks. What else do you think?
Did you say that last thing was in the reflection training pack?
The reflection materials were included in the previous session, right? Where are the?
I think they're in course resources.
Okay, the reflection resources under course resources.
Yeah. So okay. Look at the reflection resources.
The information about driving questions and entry events are in the handouts today's handouts. So as well as the multiple intelligence activity.
Yeah. So look at the MI stuff and the entry events and the driving question stuff that's in today's materials. Look at the reflection resources that are in classroom resources, like Kathy said.
And I want to, don't think about that idea board as an assignment that you have to add stuff to. If you think of some things you want to add to, that's fine. We just wanted it there to give you ideas. And then we ask people, if they've got stuff to add. We don't want that to be an extra, I got to do this thing. It's just, there are some easy ideas on there that might be of interest to you.
Okay, now, let me give you some advice from our time working with groups previously. We really recommend before you look at the reflection stuff and the stuff on driving questions and the stuff on entry events, have an idea in your head as a possibility. Just land on something that is intriguing to you, because looking at how to put a driving question together means nothing to you just as something you read about. If you're not playing with an idea, it won't resonate in the same way. the same thing with entry events. You can look at a list of, okay, here are the types of things people use for entry events, videos, guest speakers, simulations, etc. But that's a great big so what if you're not playing with an idea when you're looking at that list. Okay, so if my idea is I'm working with my 8th graders to form relationships with older adults, then that's what I'm going to think about when I look at driving question format. That's what I'm going to think about when I'm looking for entry events or thinking about possibilities. So pick an idea to play with, even if that's not the one that you end up working with. Just pick something that you personally care about and let that be the mental exercise that you use. And that will help you too when you're thinking about reflection. You know, you need to be focused on something in order for those things to have meaning in the short term. Okay. And if we were serious, any of you that are stuck looking for ideas and you want to Zoom with us separately for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, longer, whatever, just email us that you want to do that. Give us some times that would work and we'll set something up so that you're not struggling. You know, our goal is no anguish here.
Yeah.
We don't allow it.
And Irina, when we were talking about pairing up with a social studies teacher, you thought, oh, I could see how that would work. I remember at Upper Arlington High School, the environmental science teacher paired up, taught a class, kind of a double class with the business teacher. And I read the kids and they followed, they chose coffee from when it starts, you know, wherever it's grown, all the way to the coffee store, and studied both the environmental aspects and the environmental impact, and then the business impact of that. And the comments that stuck out to me, I'll never, I mean, this was a number of years ago, I'll never forget this. There were kids that said, it never occurred to me that environmental science and business had anything to do with one another. And I thought, you could go all the way through high school and not understand that anything has anything to do with the other. We're showing a video tomorrow night for another class that we're doing, and we've got excerpts of a video or documentary called Beyond Measure, you may have heard of. And Sir Ken Robinson says something along the line that if you were a business of 1,000 people and you got people in groups for 40 minutes, they did something, then you moved them to a totally different group 40 minutes later and they did something totally different. And you did that 6 times a day. And then every day you repeated that. As a business, you'd be out of business within months. And that's how we design high schools and sometimes middle schools. And so even that little, you know, maybe the administration would go along with it or maybe not, but that's kind of, he also said, if you change your practice with your kids, you've changed their educational system. And if you get a few more people to change, then that's
a movement.
And when you get everybody to change, it's a revolution. And so we're starting with that individual practice, but don't forget about that movement, because especially at the high school level, those are some things that systemically, if you're going to make any change, any little tweaks like that you can do, you know, I always ask, why not? Why not have a double period and pair a social studies teacher and a math teacher? Why not? So,
what questions or comments do you have before we quit? Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to have like at the beginning, because our session, next session, we come with our idea and the possible entry point. Could we have 15 minutes to begin just to share that with a small group and then have feedback? Because to me, again, bouncing off the ideas. I'm like, oh, okay. But I like when people, like Sarah was like, okay, have you thought about this? I'm like, oh, I love that. So maybe since we're coming with the question that we can do a quick 10, 15 minute small group, bouncing ideas off. Well, maybe you can consider that because we all have expertise in different areas.
Yeah, that'd be great. And
Okay.
actually, that was one of the things that we knocked off today's agenda.
Okay. Ooh, my bad.
No. That we thought that was the logical next step. We just didn't get there because there was good discussion about other things.
But
So
we'll make sure we do next week.
We'll start that way. Anything else?
And I apologize. Because I'm seeing myself on video. Every once in a while I look like I had a stroke. I had some outpatient surgery last week, and so these muscles aren't quite working. So hopefully by next week or the week after, I won't look so weird.
You look good. I didn't notice anything there.
When I smile.
Oh, okay.
Anything else, guys? All right.
And I apologize for being late. I was having technical issues. I have a brand new computer, wouldn't let me on Zoom. And so I do apologize to everyone for being 30 minutes late. So I'm sorry.
That's fine.
No worries. Hey, I'm going to depend on you to submit your exit tickets if you can within a day and a half or so that we know how you're all feeling and coming along. We want to make sure everybody's comfortable and getting the help they need. So please check in.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, gang.
Great to see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.